welcome to day 14 of the Red Letter Revolution. This is going to be a long one. It's Matthew 22:34 to 39. And it jumps in with Jesus talking about the greatest commandments. But prior to getting to the greatest commandments, he basically, and you'll see this a lot in the scriptures, the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they tend to try to test Jesus, and he usually catches them and throws them off guard. And so that has just happened when we're coming into the greatest commandments. So here we go. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. Then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him, and saying, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You should love your neighbor as yourself." On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them, saying, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "How then does David in the Spirit call him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool'? If David then calls him Lord, how is he his son?" And no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day on did anyone dare question him anymore. And basically, Jesus catches everybody every time, and they kind of get silenced because they can't answer the questions that he asks. He's using logic for their perspective. So it goes on. Then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and his disciples, saying, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do. But do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on humans' shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their phylacteries, which is the thing on their garment, broad and enlarge the borders of their garments. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, the one who is in heaven. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, the Christ. But the one who is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever exalts themselves will be humbled, and whoever humbles themselves will be exalted. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! I want to say that hard. Hypocrites! For you shut up the kingdom of heaven against people, for you neither go in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, says it again, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore you will receive greater condemnation. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, he says it again, for you travel land and sea with one to win one proselyte, which is basically to convert somebody. And when that person is won, you make them twice as much a child of hell as yourself. Man, this dude is not playing. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, whoever swears by the temple, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple, they are obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold? And whoever swears by the altar, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gift that is on it, they are obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, fools and blind. He doesn't even play around. He calls them suckers fools again. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? Therefore, the one who swears by the altar swears by it and by all things on it. Whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by the one who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by the Creator who sits on it. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithes of mint and anise and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have done, without leaving the others undone. Blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. And if you don't get that, that's a poop joke, basically. He's saying that they are constipated spiritually. Like they eat a whole camel and then they strain to get a gnat out. He's basically calling them constipated. At any rate, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because he loves saying it. For you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees, first cleanse the inside of the cup and dish, then the outside of them may be clean also. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, say it with me, y'all, hypocrites. For you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of righteousness, and say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore, you are witnesses against yourselves that you are children of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your father's guilt. Serpents, brood of vipers, how can you escape the condemnation of hell? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city. But I mean that on you may come all the righteous blood of the shed on the earth. Sorry for stumbling. From the blood of righteousness, Abel, the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I've wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. So, Jesus continues to be gangster, just like I was talking about yesterday, and he doesn't play. And that's the thing. I trip out because the way that Jesus gets taught all the time is as if he's like, oh, what's up, man? I'm a hippie Jesus. All I do is act soft and let everybody abuse me, and I don't do anything about it. And if you follow me, you'll let yourself get abused too. Meanwhile, he's calling people hypocrites and calling them out and saying, you're going out here trying to convert people, and then you're making them a child of hell just like yourself. Like, he's legitimately saying, you are full of junk, and I see it. So how is it that many of us who say that we follow Christ watch people be deep in their hypocrisy, deep in their full of crappery, and we just go along with it? And Jesus didn't. So if we were following Jesus, we wouldn't either. And we would speak of the things of justice instead of these people who he said they just want to be seen by people. They don't go into the kingdom themselves, and then they keep other people from doing it because they're too busy being hypocrites. And I don't have to say it. I think it's pretty obvious. There's a lot of hypocrites going on right now. The hypocrisy is real. And those of us who say we follow Christ or the wisdom teachings or even God or anything that invites us, because he's talking about in the beginning, the great commandments. Love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, and the other is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these things hang everything. So if we're not loving our neighbors as ourselves and we're not loving God completely, we are most likely hypocrites. If we're looking at the scriptures and we're comparing ourselves, we can see ourselves as the hypocrites that we might be. And that's a good thing, because if you can see yourself, then you can change. And that's the invitation that Jesus is calling us into, to change, to not be hypocrites, to see the world as it is and see what could be and go toward that, a more inclusive, a more embracing, a more loving world. But in order to get that, we have to clean the inside and the outside. And that is something where we're lacking. So I said a lot, the scriptures have a lot, and depending on where you are and where you locate yourself in this journey, you might be processing a lot, because for a long time, you might not even have heard this side of Jesus. I know I never got preached it when I was growing up. So hopefully you get something out of this. We're on to day 15, about 10 more days left in the Red Letter Revolution. And I hope that by the end of it, you feel equipped and empowered to just live as fully as you can into these teachings. And I guess that's about it. Thanks.